Hello, everyone. This is Brian Frabel, Vice President of Marketing for Velo, and thank you for attending our webinar on optimizing sales enablement for salespeople. And what we've done in this webinar is really tried to sit in the seat and in the shoes of a salesperson and look through the lens of what a salesperson needs from sales enablement. So what we'll do is kind of look at it in the beginning from both sides. I mean, what the sales enablement function may be a formal job, may just be more of a function depending on your company. You know, what do they typically think they do? What does, from the other side of the fence, what does the salesperson want? And then we'll talk about some common disconnects, and we'll give you some tips to try to avoid the disconnects that we see as we work with our clients. So to start with, rather than doing a boring definition of what is sales enablement and giving you what a bunch of analysts and industry pundits think, what I did was I took a bunch of definitions from a variety of sources, vendors, analysts, thought leaders in the sales enablement space, and threw them into a word cloud. I was pleasantly surprised with the outcome because, as you can see there, some of the larger words such as sales, team, process, content, right training, all things that you would expect from a sales enablement group. And we'll come back to this in a little bit, though, because there were a couple words in there that threw up some warning signs, but we'll hold that for a second. If we sit down and talk to many sales enablement professionals, these are the common problems that they're solved, and I should step back there for a second. Depending on the size of the organization, you may have a formal sales enablement team, people that have sales enablement in their job titles. What we see is some smaller mid-sized companies don't necessarily have someone that is full-time sales enablement, or maybe they have one person and it's half their job. But the charter we're seeing more and more often, regardless of the size of the company. And when we get to recommendations, we'll talk a little bit more about that charter. It's important to have that well defined. But when you have an organization that has sales enablement defined, so they have a charter, these are many of the common problems. Oftentimes is we have too much content, we can't find it, or only 30% of my content is being used. My sales reps don't know what to say, they can't articulate value. And in the end, it all comes down to how do I get the training, the coaching, and the content/information into the hands of the sales reps so they can perform at a highest level. So when you break it down into, okay, so what does that mean that they do? These are kind of your high-level buckets of functions that we see in sales labor. Onboarding, training, content, and that's content creation as well as content distribution, as well as content management, keeping it up to date, on brand, etc. And this is an interesting space because we're seeing more and more in the sales enablement industry tools and technology that allows salespeople to create content. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of the intersections of what salespeople want and what sales enablement want and where things can go wrong. And I think this is one place where you have to be careful. CSO Insights recently in 2016 did a study, and they found that when marketing or sales content requires a major redesign or improvement, it actually has an adverse impact on quota attainment. Almost a 10% decline in quota attainment when salespeople are required to do a lot of fiddling around with the content. So I think the goal of a sales enablement team should be to get the content right so sales doesn't have to spend any time fiddling around with it. In addition, there's a lot of focus on content, but let's be honest, you can put the very best piece of content in front of a salesperson, but if that salesperson doesn't know how to sell value, articulate your unique differentiation, handle objections, etc., it doesn't matter how good that piece of content is, they're not going to be a high performer. And so that's when coaching comes into play. Coaching is an important piece, and this is for both the new reps as well as the well-seasoned reps. Coaching never stops. Just like professional athletes need coaching all throughout their career, even the best sales reps need coaching. There's a lot of process and programs in sales enablement, or hopefully if you do it right, you do ones that make your organization more efficient and you don't overburden your sales reps with too much process and administrative duties. And then finally, there's the tools and technology, which has exploded in the last 5 years. But a word of caution here as well is you have to make sure that as you start to explore technology, you're exploring technology with a problem and a solution in mind. We get a lot of people that talk to us kicking tires and just looking to, in their words, see what's out there, which is fine, as provided you don't act until you know what you're trying to solve. It can be very dangerous to bring in a tool because you thought it was cool, it had neat reporting on the back end, and then you put it into your environment, and it turns out sales doesn't adopt it, and it gets rejected, and it falls flat on its face. And unfortunately, that story has repeated itself way too many times in many organizations. So that's what sales enablement does. When you ask a salesperson, so what do you think sales enablement does? Oftentimes you get this guy. I have no idea. Maybe they say they run the sales portal. Oh, I know the training team, things like that. But I think this is an area for a lot of organizations where aligning sales and marketing, using sales enablement as the glue is a huge opportunity for improvement. But if we just ask more simply, the salespeople are super simple, right? What are you looking for? How can someone help you? And these are probably the 4 most common things that you'll hear. One is they want time. Typically, they'll tell you that they hate all the administrative tasks. CRM, although it does help them, most sales reps hate entering data into CRMs, but it is a necessary evil. They want information and they want content, but they want it when it's relevant. And typically, it's relevant about 5 minutes before they're picking up the phone or walking into the room for a meeting. So they want it real time, and of course they want it instantaneously, and they don't want to have to spend time, back to bullet point number 1, looking for it. They want help. I have never met a salesperson that won't listen to a tip or coaching or things like that, but they want help that actually helps them. I think if you talk to salespeople, a lot of them will tell you they get more help than they want or need. So it needs to be it needs to be timely and relevant. And then less administrative duties. Unfortunately, too many organizations, both from the sales management side and the marketing side, ask sales reps to report on all sorts of things so that they can be micromanaged, or it feels like to the sales rep, they can be micromanaged by marketing or sales. And so another word of caution here is, especially in the technology space, there's a lot of cool tools for reporting that make beautiful charts and graphs and things like that. Just make sure before you implement something like that that you really, really need it, and ask yourself, do I need it because I want to justify my marketing budget to my CFO, or do I need it because this is going to help me improve the sales rep's performance? Because chances are those charts and graphs are adding some level of burden on the sales rep. So if we go back to my word cloud and the definition of what is sales enablement, there were a couple things that kind of stood out to me and said, got to be careful. And I pointed out the 3 here, which is marketing, content, and tools. And I'm a marketer, so I can say this. I love my content. I love to create content. And of course, I think my content is awesome and it will just sell itself. And there's all sorts of great technology tools out there to help you manage content, distribute content, micromanage your content. But if the sales enablement function gets too focused on the marketing side and the content side, especially with the tools and the technology, you're missing the ultimate audience for your sales enablement function, which is, how do I improve my sellers? And so what I decided after thinking about that is I said, let's marry what sales enablement across the horizontal axis there, their main functions, And then let's look at the 4 things that I laid out that's what sales reps want. And kind of look across and say, okay, so do I help or do I potentially hurt? I don't think any of these necessarily hurt a sales rep, but where are areas of caution where you should stop and think before you implement? So onboarding, clearly if you're a new sales rep, whether you're a new junior sales rep or you've switched companies and you're learning a new process, new product line, new marketplace, onboarding is helpful. Onboarding is the help you need because you need to learn. It's relevant info. And, a good onboarding program will have me up and running and hitting quota as quickly as possible. So I think from a sales rep's standpoint, it's pretty safe to say anything you can do to help with the onboarding process is a good thing for the sales rep. There's not too much harm you can do there. Now, when we talk about ongoing training, obviously, if you're going to train me on a new product that just launched, that's very helpful and relevant to me. But the caution areas for training that you have to be careful of are the time and how you do it and the administrative tasks. And a lot of organizations will take the product launch scenario. We do a 1-hour webinar. We spew all this information, put a link up on the web, and then we go away. Well, the problem is, one, you're taking an hour out of my day, which may be a necessary evil, but chances are I'm not going to remember most of that content. And so I'd encourage you in your training programs to think about how people learn, and we're far more likely to absorb and retain information when we are curious about it. And so a good example is you train me in a new product launch, but I'm not really planning on selling that product anytime soon. I'll probably retain about 10 to 20% of what you tell me. I have a prospect who I think this new product is going to be really a really exciting product for them. I am far more likely to be attentive and want to learn that information because it's relevant to me. And so if you can develop training not only in the batch 1-hour webinar mode, but also reinforcement, short bursts of memory boosters, because when I'm about to go into that new prospect and I'm excited about selling the new product, I am going to be really interested in all the new bells and whistles and features and value of that new product. When we talk about content creation, provided you're doing it well and it's good content, you're saving the sales rep time, especially if the sales rep doesn't have to touch it at all and it's just turnkey. You give them relevant information and give them help. And so I think content creation from a sales enablement side can do a lot of good, provided it's good content. It really just comes down to making sure it's good content. And when we get to the recommendations, I'll talk about some things to think about on how to make your content good. When it comes to distributing content, this is where a lot of organizations struggle and where tools and technology can help. We hear over and over again, we have six portals, no one can find anything, sales just uses the same old presentation they've had, or they pick up the phone and they bug the heck out of the marketing team or sales enablement team going, I got a meeting in 15 minutes, I need this presentation, where is it? Distribution of content is probably the biggest place where content or technology can help and reduce the amount of time it takes for sales to find content and all of the administrative work that goes along with finding it and even modifying it. Coaching. I think coaching is one that these should be big 10 times bigger check marks, because coaching can help someone, especially if you can do it in the moment, give people relevant, helpful information. Too few organizations actually have a formal coaching program. And again, this is where technology can play a huge role, because if you have a distributed field sales team, for instance, you can virtually coach in the moment right before your sales rep's about to go into a big meeting, you can remind them the key value propositions, how to handle the most likely objections they're going to get, et cetera. There's a ton you can do there. And you can help them position the great content and tell them how to sell value. So not a lot of harm you can do here, and there's lots of technology can help you with. When it comes to the process and programs, it really depends on the process and programs, and there are necessary evils here, but obviously it's probably stating the obvious, but make sure you don't over-process things, especially if you're going to add process and administrative tasks to the salesperson. Make sure there's value somewhere at the end of the tunnel for them. And then finally, tools and technology. Again, there's a lot. I talked about coaching. I talked about content and what technology can do for you. My word of caution here is watch out for the back-end pretty bells and whistles, charts and graphs and reports that may make the CFO or the CMO or the marketing team happy, but make sure that in order to get that data, you're not putting a burden on the sales rep. Because if you're not helping the sales rep and you're not making some really earth-shattering decisions off of that data, it's probably not worth collecting, and it's probably not worth having those pretty charts and graphs. So taking that intersection, I distilled that down into 5 tips to make sure you avoid common disconnects we see with a sales enablement team that has their charter versus the 4 simple things that the salesperson wanted. And so the first one is, and I think this is really important no matter what size company you are, is have a sales enablement charter. The best way to make sure there are no disconnects and you're adding value and you're actually helping improve performance is by having something formally written down. Now, if you're lucky enough and you're a large corporation, you have a team, great. You probably are, hopefully you already have that. If you're a team of 1 and this is a third of your job, there's still no reason you can't do this. And it's 4 simple things. Who's the owner of the programs and who are the stakeholders, because they obviously want to have a say in what the owner is creating. A vision and mission. If you're only 1 person and a third of your time is on this, your vision and mission is probably going to be a lot more narrower than if you're a team of 10 at a larger organization. And that comes down to objectives and strategies. It may be your organization just wants to focus on coaching, and that's what you're going to focus on for the next 12 months. That's fine, but if you have it written down, there's not a disconnect on you're not delivering this. You're not delivering A, but you're delivering B. You'll have it written down. And then obviously metrics. So how do you know whether it's working or not? Anecdotal type, feedback surveys are great, but I think in this space you really need to get to how are you impacting deals through the pipeline, so pipeline velocity, revenue, et cetera, hard business metrics. In the sales enablement space, you really have, especially with technology, you can measure hard business impact. And just to give you an idea, CSO Insights did in their study said almost half of the organizations that they surveyed still treat sales enablement as kind of a one-off. So they go to project. They don't have a formal holistic charter. But those that did have a formal holistic charter and document it achieved 10% more revenue and improved their win rate by 16%. So back to my point, the measuring business and the impact you can have. So that's tip number 1. Tip number 2 is making training relevant. And obviously you're going to have to do your hour-long, half-hour-long training, whether it's in-person or virtual, whether you do a sales kickoff or some other kind of face-to-face. But in order to make your training the most impactful, having it done memory reinforcement in the moment. When I'm out in the field, I'm about to go into a client, what are the key 3 value propositions of our new product? Being able to deliver that to me in the moment will ensure that your reps, 1, retain that knowledge, and two, they're more likely to use it, and you're going to have huge impact on your win rates, revenue, quota attainment, all that kind of things. So if you don't have ongoing reinforcement in your training programs, you're far less effective than if you can implement that. And that, again, is a great place where technology can help you deliver that in the moment to the rep via cell phone, tablet, desktop. I mean, there's a lot of ways that it can be delivered. The third one is, with technology, you shouldn't even think about technology until you've defined a business problem or challenge, or maybe it's a business opportunity, and you think about the possible solutions. If you're looking at technology just because you've been reading lots of blogs about the sales tech or MarTech's explosion, and you gotta be up to date and keep up with the Joneses, I would guarantee you that you're going to end up implementing a platform that is never used, collects dust for a year, and then you end up canceling it. So start with a business challenge or opportunity, then look at what technology can solve that for you. It may also help you in choosing a tool, because there are a lot of tools and technology out there that people implement and only use about 10% of the functionality, because they didn't really think about what they were trying to solve. They bought more for features than they did business challenges. The fourth one is, formalizing coaching and doing it at relevant times. And CSO Insights, in their study, looked at coaching, and they looked at organizations that had an informal coaching approach to those that had no coaching program at all. And what they found was that revenue achievement was about the same. So even if the company invested a little bit of money in an informal program, it was pretty much wasted. They were better off doing absolutely nothing. For those organizations that had a formal coaching program, they improved quota attainment by 10%. So I guess the message here is you can't go half in. You got to go full in with a full-on coaching program. And it's helpful if you can do it in the moment. And that's where virtual tools and technology come into play, because as a sales manager, I can't be with every single rep all the time. But using technology, I can virtually be there right before my rep walks into the big meeting to close a deal. The fifth one is a really important one, is aligning marketing content with sales training. And this is where, if your sales and marketing team aren't aligned, and as a sales enablement organization, you're not gluing them together, this can happen. And here is a perfect example of this happens all the time at companies. The sales management puts in place a sales methodology. We're going to sell on value. We're not going to sell on price. We're not going to get into feature wars. And they spend a ton of time training their sales reps on how to sell value. Marketing has no idea what the sales training organization is doing, and marketing is doing these wonderful pieces of collateral that are all about features. And so you have a sales rep who's trying to sell on value, and marketing's delivering collateral that basically forces you back down to the feature price path. So having those two, that's just one example of how you can get disconnected between sales and marketing on the training and the content. But you need to have sales and marketing both understanding the sales methodology and sales approach so that the content can be created. And one simple way to solve this problem is put your marketing people through your sales methodology training. That way they know what it's like to be a salesperson, and then when they go back to create that content, they'll know what it's like. And I was going to stop at 5, but you get a bonus one, a sixth one, because I think this one is really important, and it's leaving it just in coaching just didn't seem like the right thing, is coach the coaches. And again, going back to CSO Insights, when they saw organization investing in sales management, it impacted revenue attainment by 18%. And when managers were coached on coaching skills, so if you think about it, coaching is just like any skill. You can improve on how you coach other people. So organizations that put it into place to teach the coaches how to coach increase win rates by 28% and quota attainment by 10%. So too often organizations, you have a superstar seller, they get promoted to manager, and then you stop coaching them and stop training them. And the message here is don't do that. You can have a huge impact if you create a team, an organization of a bunch of great coaches who are very good at coaching other people. So I hope those 6 tips help you avoid disconnects, common disconnects. When it comes down to it, I think the simple question to ask yourself with your sales enablement team and your organization is what I'm doing, whether it's process, program, content, technology, whatever it may be, is what I'm doing helping improve the performance of the sales rep? And if the answer is yes, then you're probably headed down the right track. If the answer leans more towards I'm doing something for management or I'm doing something for marketing, you should step back and ask yourself whether that's the right thing to do. Because at the end of the day, if it's not helping your sales reps, you're not going to improve revenue and ultimately company performance. And then the last part I'd leave with you is measure yourself. Make sure that what you're doing has tangible metrics and align it to some sort of business result, pipeline velocity or revenue or something like that whenever you can. So with that, I want to thank you for your time. If you head to our website, we have a bunch of other materials similar to this that can help you. And we've got, in fact, a couple briefs that dive deeper into things like playbooks and the science behind sales training and how you can use the memory reinforcement techniques that I talked about. So please visit our website. And again, thanks for attending.